interdependence of species. Here we are going to read about mutualism, parasitism, predation, protocooperation, competition, and commensalism. Here we'll see how organisms through some interactions get benefited or harmed or remain unaffected. First one is mutualism. When two organisms live together in such a way that both of them are benefited by the mutual exchange from each other, it is known as mutualism. So it is a symbiotic relationship where two or more species interact and all of them get benefited. Now let's see some examples of mutualism. Pollination can be an example of mutualism, where bee is dependent on the flower for nectar and flower is also benefited as bee helps in pollination. Another very good example of mutualism is lichens. Lichen means the association between green algae and non-green fungi. So green algae produces food as it can do photosynthesis. It has chlorophyll. And in return, fungal provides minerals, nitrogen and water to green algae. So the green algae provides food to the fungi, and in return fungi provides mineral, nitrogen and water to the algae. In this manner both are getting benefited. One more example of mutualism can be a rhizobium and a leguminous plant. Rhizobium is a nitrogen fixing bacterium that lives in the root nodules of leguminous plant. Then how the both get benefited? See, in the roots of the plant, bacteria get various nutrients and food for their growth. As we know, plants make their own food, so they provide food to the bacteria. And in return, bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into nitrates. Because plants cannot take direct nitrogen from the atmosphere, so bacteria in the soil convert this atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates. They present in the root nodules of the plant and provide nitrates to the plant. These nitrates act as a good fertilizers and help the plant in growth and development. One more example can be the association between nitrogen fixing blue-green algae and fern azolla. So here the nitrogen fixing blue-green algae such as nostoc and anabina live in the cells of the leaves of fern, that is azolla. The fern provides organic substance to algae, whereas the algae supply nitrogen to the fern. Next is parasitism. Parasitism is a mode of life where an organism such as parasite lives in the body of another organism, that is host, for food, shelter and reproduction. In this case, the host is harmed by the parasite. If the harm may be reflected in the form of diseases, then the parasites are called pathogens. So in such type of interaction, only one partner get benefited and other get harmed. Example of parasitism is Plasmodium, which is a single cell parasite which grows and multiplies in the liver and red blood cells of man and causes malaria. So here a mosquito drinks the blood of humans and other animals and is supplied with food and nutrients, whereas the host is at risk of acquiring disease such as malaria. Parasites can be anything. It can be a virus, bacteria, fungi, worm, or even some higher plants, or even different animals as well. Another example of parasitism is an angiosperm plant such as cuscuta, which grows as a parasite on shrubs and trees. Here the yellow one is cuscuta, which lack chlorophyll and cannot synthesize its own food. It produces haustoria, which penetrate the stem tissue of the host plant and develop direct contact with host vascular tissue for drawing nourishment from it. Predation. So, in this type of interaction, a big species regularly consumes or eats another species. So, it is a relationship between the predator and the prey species. For example, tiger eats deer, a snake eats rat, or an eagle eats rabbit or fox. Commensalism is a type of association where one organism is benefited while the other remains unaffected and there is no involvement of food. Let's take an example of woodpecker who peck holes for nesting in tree trunks. After they have abandoned the holes, some other small birds such as bluebirds use them for nesting. So here woodpecker is unaffected and bluebird is benefited. Another example is the association of soft-bodied hermit crab and an empty mollusk shell. Means a crab gets protection by using the empty shell of a mollusk. Next is competition. It is a type of interaction between two organisms in which both try to obtain the same benefits in any habitat. The competitors may belong to the same species or to different species. If it is take place between same species, then it is called intraspecific competition. And if between different species, then it is called interspecific competition. Here, both the species are negatively affected. For example, in the tropical evergreen forest, the thickly populated plants compete for light. In plants, the competition mainly occurs for water, nutrients, and light. And among animals, it is for food, shelter, and mating. Protocooperation. Protocooperation is a type of interaction between two organisms of different species in which both are benefited, but the relation is not obligatory. In this association, each species tend to depend on the other for some advantages. But the partners in this relationship are not so intimate and do not appear as a single entity observed in symbiosis or mutualism. For example, an ergot bird takes a ride on a water buffalo and eats lice, ticks, and other insects found on the skin of the water buffalo. So here the bird gets food in the form of insects and the buffalo is freed from irritating insect bites. A good example of protocooperation is the association between sea anemones and hermit crab. Sea anemones grow on the body of crabs. Sea anemone has poisonous stinging cells which scare the enemies of the crabs. Whereas sea anemone shifted from one place to another with the movement of the crab and thus gets better opportunities to find food. So here both are getting benefited. But it is not obligatory. Because if crab do not move, sea anemone would be staying in one place, but it would protect the crab with its tentacles. Or sea anemone can grow in other place without crab. Means each can survive without the other. And this is what protocooperation is.